Well, in terms of scale, it seemed to be unprecedented. A global IT outage that knocked down systems around the world and is still being felt, and an enormous economic impact too. A cybersecurity firm called CrowdStrike says the outage was caused by an update it pushed for Windows. Tiny piece of code, only 41 kilobytes, but the problem was calamitous. Businesses across almost all industries have been impacted, from airports, banks, broadcasters and hospitals. CrowdStrike has suffered immediate financial consequences, its stock price dropping by more than $19 billion. The company's CEO, George Kurtz, has apologised
for the impact that we've caused to customers, to travelers, to anyone affected by this, including our companies. So we know what the issue is. We're resolving and have resolved the issue now. It's recovering systems that are out there. And essentially, as you've talked about in the statement I put out, is the system was sent an update, and that update had a software bug in it and caused an issue with the Microsoft operating system. And we identified this very quickly and remediated the issue. And as systems come back online, as they're rebooted, they're coming up and they're working. And now we are working with each and every customer to make sure that we can bring them back online. But that was the extent of an issue. The issue in terms of a bug that was related to our update. It wasn't a cyber attack. You know, it was related to this this content update. And as you might imagine, we've been on with our customers all night and working with them. Many of the customers are rebooting the system, and it's coming up and it'll be operational because of we fixed it on our end. And some of the systems that aren't recovering, we're working with them. So it could be some time for some systems that just automatically won't recover. But it is our mission, is why we're here, to make sure that every customer is fully recovered, and we're not going to relent until we get every customer back to where they were, and we continue to protect them and keep the bad guys out of their systems.
And airlines are recovering this morning after being hit by that IT outage, triggering chaotic scenes at Australian airports overnight.
We've got reporters on the ground around the country for us this morning. Fiona Willan in Sydney, Roshai Murdoch in Melbourne and Harry Clark in Brisbane. Let's go to Fiona first, who's at Sydney Domestic Airport. Fee, good morning. So how are things this morning where you are?
Yeah, good morning. Look, we're at the Jetstar check-in counter. This was by far the worst affected airline. As you can see, there is already a long queue forming behind me here. There will be an enormous backlog to work through this weekend after more than a dozen flights were cancelled yesterday. Although at this stage it appears that flights today will be going ahead and running on time. The airline put out an update a few hours ago. I'll read you some of that. It says our IT systems are beginning to stabilise and flights are currently planned to operate as scheduled. Please proceed to the airport as usual. Now, it does note there may be a small number of flights affected today. It says it will contact the people on those flights directly. As for the people whose flights have already been cancelled, it's got a separate update for those. We sincerely apologise and appreciate this would have been a frustrating experience. Our teams are working on alternative flights for you. It says that we'll be contacting those people soon. Last night, some people were left queuing here for hours. I think it was around 17 flights that were cancelled before they were turned away. Other airlines were affected to a much lesser extent. Qantas put out a statement overnight. It said flights had been delayed, but people should head to the airport as usual, but allow a bit of extra time, while Virgin has a note on its website saying its operations remain stable. And of course, this hasn't just hit flights here in Australia. This has been worldwide. Several US airlines have actually grounded their fleet. Delta, United and American Airlines were forced to ground flights. So far though, here things do appear to be running pretty smoothly. We've noticed people using the self-check-in counters here today. Last night they were not operational at all, but certainly there's a lot of catching up to do in the days ahead. So if you are travelling today, the advice is to get to the airport early and check your airline's website before you go to make sure that your flight is running on time.
Yeah, some good advice to anyone travelling today. Fiona, thank you. Now to Harry Clark, who is at Brisbane's Queen Street Mall. Harry, how has trade been affected in the CBD?
Well, Danica, I guess it's never a good time for there to be a global IT outage, but Friday afternoon is perhaps less inconvenient than it otherwise could have been. A lot of people in the Brisbane CBD here got an early mark on a Friday afternoon as IT systems and office software databases were shut down because of this IT outage. A lot of people are coming out into the CBD, but retail trade seemed to continue for a lot of businesses. I was here until about 7 o'clock last night, and a lot of major franchises still seem to be open and operating. Some of them had to be taking cash only, but thankfully there was still some trade continuing in the CBD last night. There has been dramas up and down the state, though, in other parts in regional Queensland. I've spoken to a few businesses, professional service businesses out in the bush, and their IT systems were affected by this, just small businesses. In central Queensland, the coal train network in the Galilee Basin in central Queensland had to be temporarily shut down because this IT outage caused problems with the train signals. So no doubt, obviously in the interests of safety, that had to be temporarily closed down. But Brisbane Airport was not immune to the dramas on the passenger lines. Jetstar flights were grounded there, and there was problems with the baggage check-in with Qantas. Supermarkets, queues outside Woolworths and Coles here in the Brisbane CBD. It's pretty quiet here this morning. There's not a whole lot of action in the Brisbane CBD, but no doubt all the businesses that are coming to work today will be hoping very much that their systems are back up and running by the time doors open at about 9 o'clock.
All right, Harry, appreciate that. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Live now to Melbourne, where Rochelle Murdoch is at Melbourne Airport for us. Rochelle, passengers stranded overnight, hoping to get off the ground this morning.
That's exactly right. I'm here at the Jetstar terminal at Melbourne Airport, which is essentially completely taken offline last night. Passengers are able to check in this morning, but it is slow going. It's very busy here at Melbourne Airport for very early in the morning. Other airlines at Melbourne Airport were also affected, but were able to find workarounds. Domestic passengers at Qantas were being checked in through the international terminal and then sent back to their domestic departure gates. Virgin was also affected. They experienced significant delays, but were able to get flights off the ground. Jetstar is a different story. Late last night, they decided to completely ground all of their flights until 2 o'clock in the morning, forcing hundreds, if not thousands of passengers to go home or find alternative accommodation. I'll just read you a statement now from Melbourne Airport that came through late last night. It says they were working through the night with their airline partners to return operations here to normal. Jetstar notified all passengers that their flights were cancelled until 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, as a result of that outage last night, there are delays here at Melbourne Airport this morning. Passengers were advised to get here well ahead of time. I am waiting for an update from Melbourne Airport that will come through later this morning. There were other areas in Victoria that were also affected. Police and emergency services, their internal computer systems were taken offline. They said they turned off, then on, and then off again. But luckily, 000 services remained online, as well as their radio systems. Hospitals also experienced major issues. Their computer systems were also taken offline, forcing them to turn some patients away and even cancel treatments. Pete.
OK, Rochelle, appreciate that. Thank you.
And joining us now live is technology expert Trevor Long. Trevor, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us, how can one company cause so much damage across the world?
Yeah, good morning. Well, when one company has as many customers as they do, they have this much reach. CrowdStrike has 23,000 customers around the globe, and that potentially is millions and millions of actual endpoint computers. So basically, this failure on their part to roll out a stable update caused all of those systems to go offline. And it does demonstrate the world's reliance sometimes on one company. Now, obviously, there are other companies doing the same thing, and that they probably have as many customers. But the fact is that one company made a failed software update, and that brought millions of computers around the world to a halt.
Hey, Trevor, with 23,000 customers, would those businesses be entitled to compensation now? Is this where the story eventually goes?
I think so, Pete. So the way these systems work is you subscribe to a service and there's uptime and downtime. So basically, they would have had a reliance on this company for a certain amount of uptime. But the difference here is this is not a cloud failure. This is actually a software failure that brought the computers to a halt. So actually, I think there would be a compensation, if not a litigation plan here, and it would be a massive class action because there is millions of dollars at stake. And just even though business can resume and you can get those customers back, it's the heartache and the concern and the cost of deploying these updates. There would be IT people this morning having to physically attend to millions of computers to get them working again. So I would suggest CrowdStrike would be in the target for a large litigation around the world.
Yeah, absolutely not surprised by that. That's huge. Trevor, it was interesting. Some people have said that this is what we were worried about when it came to the Y2K, except it's actually happened this time. Do you agree?
Absolutely. You know, people joke about Y2K being a myth, but in fact, behind the scenes, I was doing it, people were working hard to make sure that the systems didn't fail. And this is exactly what would have happened in the year 2000 if we hadn't have fixed the Y2K bug. What CrowdStrike deployed was akin to the Y2K bug directly into computers around the world, and making them absolutely useless. So yeah, I think that's a really great analogy, and the fact that it was deployed directly by a publicly listed company to their own customers is outrageous.
A dark question here, Trevor, but is this the biggest outage of this kind in history? And also, might it encourage bad actors or even inspire them to say, well, look what's happened here, and this wasn't even a hack. This is something potentially we could do down the track.
Pete, without question, the biggest IT outage we've ever seen. You know, if you think about Optus was massive for us last year, and that was big, but I would say this is probably bigger in Australia. And then when you amplify that globally, this is without question the biggest IT failure in history. And yes, Pete, it is a big problem that we can expose ourselves with just one company. So, you know, if you're a state actor, a bad actor of any sort, you would now look at the market and you would say, which companies could we target that have tentacles and reach into actual computers in enterprises around the world? Imagine if you were to target a company, take them down in some way, or infiltrate their systems and be part of the deployment that ruined these computers like this. And you were trying to bring airlines to a halt, trying to cause pain on the retail system. That's exactly what was done, not nefariously at all, just badly. But the fact is that this is the kind of attack that will occur in cyber warfare.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. Trevor, once the dust has settled, surely the question then has to be asked, could this ever happen again?
Unfortunately, I think it'd be mad for anyone to say no, it couldn't happen again, because we rely on software, we rely on the cloud, we rely on private companies to maintain systems. And the irony here, let's be clear, is that CrowdStrike's mantra is to protect organisations from outages through cyber attacks. Now, this was not a cyber attack, but the very company relied on was the company that brought all these businesses to a halt. So, look, you'd be mad to suggest that it couldn't happen again. Obviously, a lot of companies will be looking at themselves now, making sure they have new checks and balances. But yeah, I don't think this will be the last time we see outages. Hopefully, it's the last time we see something this big.
All right, that's the tech expert, Trevor Long. Appreciate your time, Trevor. We'll talk to you again soon. EFTM's Trevor Long there. Thank you, Trev. Well, attendees of the Republican National Convention have been left stranded in Milwaukee after the global CrowdStrike outage brought airlines to a halt. Washington correspondent Annalise Nielsen filed this report.
We're here at Milwaukee Airport, where we're among thousands of people who are trying to fly out after the Republican National Convention, but the airport is in chaos. Like many across the United States, we're told as many as 2,000 flights have been delayed or cancelled. Our flight is showing up as being on time, but now we're being told that there's a chance it's simply not updating the system and our flight has indeed been delayed or cancelled. We don't know until we can get to the front desk, and the lines aren't moving. We're seeing similar scenes across the country as many are grappling with how to deal with this cyber outage and the flow-on effects as systems come online after rebooting. Annalise Nielsen, Sky News in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Screens at Disneyland Paris have displayed error messages following the global IT outage. CrowdStrike issued a botched software update this afternoon, or yesterday afternoon, resulting in the international outage of Microsoft computers. Screens at the theme park and its resort reportedly either turned off or are displaying error messages.